right, so I think today we're going to be talking a little bit about our trip in West Virginia. I believe the first thing we're going to show you is a little bit of our drone footage. So we had some special requirements that we had to follow for that, but we were able to get drone footage mostly of Twin Falls Resort State Park. And yeah, take a look.
So Austin, I know getting drone footage of certain state parks and different areas can be really challenging. Can you tell them a little bit how we got permissions to do this? Because we did in fact get permissions.
Yeah, so per West Virginia law, to be able to fly in any state park, you have to have permission from the superintendent of that park or somebody that the superintendent delegates to deal with that. So in our case, that was the assistant superintendent here at Twin Falls Resort State Park. We were able to speak with him. He was okay with us flying the drone as long as we followed, standard safety guidelines. But in addition, he wanted to ensure that we didn't bother any other guests, especially near the campsites. But also out on the trails and by the falls, just making sure that, we're not taking away from anybody else's experience. In addition to that, we had to make sure that all of our papers were in order with the FAA before we took off, just like we normally would.
Yeah, but other than that, it was pretty easy going as far as that goes. So we didn't have to fill out a permission slip or apply as far as like a permit, rather just speaking with that superintendent or assistant superintendent, whoever is delegated that responsibility. So we went to New River Gorge National Park. Let's talk a little bit about that. It was a really, really beautiful place.
Yeah, so the national park is actually pretty long. So it's a pretty narrow strip around the river itself. But there were some pretty nice hiking trails and some really, really breathtaking views. Tara was able to get some really, really fantastic footage there.
Yeah, it was awesome to grab some pictures of the dips in the valleys and the river as it was going. But because it is a national park, we were not able to get any drone footage, as it is it's illegal to fly a drone in a national park, as far as we've seen in research.
Yeah, so getting permissions from the National Park Service can be a little difficult. I think that in the future we're going to reach out ahead of time to see if we can arrange something. But from everything that we've read online, it's apparently pretty difficult to get through those permissions, which is pretty unfortunate considering how beautiful the landscape is. It seems it's not great that they restrict it for everybody whenever most people would fly safely, but we get it, so we got to play within the rules.
We have been staying at the Twin Falls Resort State Park here in Mullins, West Virginia. It is a beautiful state park. We've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, there's a ton to do here, so it really is a resort state park. So some places use that term a little loosely, but there's a golf course, a restaurant. The lodge has quite a bit to do. There's plenty of hiking trails, and the scenery is just beautiful. So and that's obviously there's also campgrounds and what comes with that. So Tara,
Yeah,
you want to talk a little bit about the golf course?
Yeah, so the golf course is beautiful. I did not play it, but rather I photographed Austin on the golf course, and I'll show you some of those pictures of the golf course. Maybe not so much Austin's playing of it.
Nobody needs to see that, not even me,
especially
not me.
It is a beautiful course, and it's right in the valley. So, and even though it's fall, there's leaves on the ground, but it's not bad at all.
Yeah, the course was in great condition. We went out a morning after it had rained in the previous evening. It was pretty wet, definitely some wet spots on the course, so it wasn't, perfect, but it's also in the valley and a mountain, so you can't really expect the drainage to be perfect. But even then, it was a lot better than some courses I played in cities that don't have any any excuses. The greens were all extremely well maintained, even though it's early November. So it was a really nice course. I played like garbage, but I'm not a very good golfer anyways. But it was still a great time. And again, I would recommend the course to anybody. Realistically, it was one of the better courses I think I've ever played.
Something that we have been doing since we've been going to some of the state parks is going on some of the trails, and definitely some of the notable trails at the state park. And here, the trail that we went on was the Twin Falls Trail. It was a gorgeous trail, and like its name sounds, like it has two waterfalls, and they were beautiful. One kind of more towards the beginning of the trail, and one towards the middle,
Yeah.
towards the middle of the trail. But it was a beautiful area. I thought it was really cool that you really couldn't get to it other than getting on the trail, so that kind of made it a little bit more special.
Yeah, and the trails were pretty well maintained. So if you took just the Twin Falls Trail, it would take you straight to those. We actually took the Nature Trail, which connects to it. So that one was a little more difficult, not too bad. But if you take just the Twin Falls Trail, there's no problems. It's pretty accessible. And the waterfalls, you can't expect Niagara Falls to just be there, but it was still two pretty reasonably sized waterfalls. The second, which the name is eluding me at the moment, we'll put that on the screen here. The second one was a little harder to get down to see, but it dropped significantly farther. There was a lot more water running through it. It was really pretty. Tara was able to get down pretty far down into it and get some pretty awesome shots.
Yeah, I think definitely one of the things I'm always worried about slipping and falling. There's a lot of rocks here, especially when you're going down into the waterfalls, is to get really low and to use the rocks and almost sit down and not necessarily
lower your center of gravity.
Not necessarily slide it down the rocks, but get really low, because the higher up you are, which I'm not very used to anyways, the more likely you can fall or twist. So
yeah. So I think the next thing we're going to talk about is a little just review of the park as a campgrounds. What did they have? What was good? What was bad? So I think we'll start from coming into the park. So we got here in the evening, and it was pretty dark. So it's November. It gets dark at like 6 o'clock or even before.
Honestly, it was like 4:30, 5 o'clock. It was right after the time change.
Yeah. So the first thing that we notice is getting to the campsite. You are going through some pretty rough hills. Again, it's West Virginia. It's in the mountains. But I would be hesitant to recommend this site to people that say their truck is a little undersized for the size of their camper, or for an RV that is getting up there in years. Some of the hills are pretty steep, and there's some pretty sharp turns to get up. Fortunately, it wasn't much of an issue for us, but I could definitely see some people struggling with it. So this park ended up closing during the winter because of how treacherous the roads get, which I completely support them doing that. It would be pretty difficult to get through some of these roads if there was even just a little bit of snow or ice.
Yeah, and it closes, I believe, December 1st through like the end of March or so.
Yeah.
Which makes total sense for this area. One thing I will say about our campsite, so we are kind of at the tail end of their season. We did not have any, they didn't have any running water as far as like extra water we could put in our tank, and we were told on the website, it says that and I'm guessing they just turned it off for the season.
Yeah, so I reached out to the park about it, and they said that they had turned off the spigots to help prevent the pipes from freezing, which we completely understand. We knew going ahead that our site didn't have a individual water hookup, so it was going to be just communal, and we were going to have to fill up our fresh water tank and use the water pump. Totally fine. The problem was that wasn't a thing. They had turned off the communal spigots, so we couldn't even fill up our fresh water tank, which ended up causing some issues. We had to run into town, grab some new water containers and fill those up at a country store that happened to allow people to do that. So if it weren't for that, we wouldn't have had fresh water to run our sinks and toilet.
Yeah, and the Walmart here also didn't have the 5-gallon fill-up jugs.
Yeah.
They didn't have any water space to do that. So it was it's pretty much 25 to 30 minutes down, or I would say 15, 20 minutes down, and then another 10 minutes really till you get towards any sort of stores or anything like that. So it's an hour round trip up and down to get anything from a Walmart or a gas station. So
the closest Walmart is going to be in MacArthur, which is, like she said, it's going to be an hour round trip, not including how much time you spend there. So that was one of the bad things. The good things is the site is in a beautiful location. So even if the park was packed, the scenery and kind of how far away you are from anything of substantial noises is pretty good. There's obviously some, campsite noise if there's people around you, but for us, we happen to catch it at the tail end of the season. There's only like 4 other people in all of the campgrounds.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful campground. There's quite a few deer around.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. So as you're winding your way up towards the campground, especially if you're coming in at night, maybe you don't have your trailer attached, watch out for deer because they are everywhere.
They are everywhere.
Yeah, we haven't had any issues, but that's just something to be aware of. The only other thing that I want to talk about at the campsite is, again, we're at the tail end of the season, but the bathrooms have a lot of bugs. More than
normal.
More than normal, which is okay. But again, because we don't have a water hookup and we don't have a sewer hookup, and since we're running on such limited water, we use their shower houses and bathrooms, and there's a lot of bugs. So I don't know if that's the tail end of the season sort of thing, or
if that's the normal here, but
yeah,
it's just something to be aware of. It's not too bad. It's manageable. Once you get through the spider webs the first time, you only have to do that once.
Yeah.
And the water in there is really hot, so
yes.
That's good. So the showers have been warm, good water pressure, haven't had any issues. None of the, it's one where you turn it on, you don't have to hit a button every 6 seconds, which is very nice. It's a nice change of pace.
But overall, we have really enjoyed our West Virginia trip. This is both of our first times in this state.
Yep.
So it's beautiful here. Definitely would come back in the fall. I'd also be really interested to see what it is like in the spring with all the beautiful flowers and stuff like that. So I don't think this is the last time West Virginia will see us. But
no, it certainly will not be. And I think that I speak for both of us when I say that we would highly recommend Twin Falls State Resort Park as a campsite, even just to come visit if you're nearby. And then for the New River Gorge National Park, it's worth the trip. It's got some really breathtaking views, especially if you're relatively nearby. If you're within a couple hours and you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out.
All right, and where can they follow us at?
They can follow us at Two Techie Travelers on pretty much every social media platform. Instagram, Facebook. We don't have a Twitter. You can follow us on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously here on YouTube as well.
Yep, and on Pinterest. So.
Did not know about that one. You'll learn things every day, everybody.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Oh my God, my butt's freezing.